United Healthcare nurse Crystal checked in on a patient.
We do a routine call after surgery, and I could tell in her voice that she was struggling.
Crystal knew she needed help.
And I knew that this is very serious. This is like septic. This is life-threatening.
And she knew just what to do.
And I called the hospital and said, she's coming in. Here are her labs.
And got her the help she needed.
I see my role at United Healthcare as a life-saving role.
Hear more stories like Crystal's at uhc.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan area. Limitation and exclusions apply.
The Roses were living the dream.
To you, my darling.
No, to you.
Until it all came crashing down.
You got fired.
Fired?
On August 29th, stop.
You stop!
And see The Roses. Rated R. In theaters everywhere, August 29th.
This podcast contains adult themes and language, and some of the things that we discuss may be disturbing to some listeners. In this podcast, we discuss sexual assault, torture, race, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care of yourself.
Welcome to Fruitloops, Buiti Binafi, and Bienvenidos Bitches. Thank you so much for listening. Fruitloops is a true crime, history, and comedy podcast that delves into the often overlooked stories of serial killers of color and, more importantly, the victims. We take deep dives into the lives and crimes of these killers worldwide, while also examining the history, culture, and social factors that may have influenced their actions. And the reason that we cover these crimes is because they often go unnoticed by the public. And why is that? Because in the simplest of terms, the news is racist. Allegedly.
And we are Wendy and Beth. She's Wendy, a Black Latinx woman, and I'm Beth, and I just happen to be white. That's just a little piece of who we are. Another piece is that although we are both fascinated by true crime, really fascinated by true crime, and we know a lot about it, keep in mind that we are not journalists, investigators, or psychologists, and the opinions expressed in this podcast are just that, our opinions.
So, who are we talking about today, Beth?
Today we're talking about Dale Devon Scheanette, a Black man who became known as the Bathtub Killer after two women at the same apartment complex in Arlington, Texas in 1996 were found dead in half-filled bathtubs.
All right, let's get into some stats. Dale Devon Scheanette was born on May 7th, 1973 in Wachita Parish, Louisiana. Court records said he was Hispanic. I don't know where they got that from. I think more appropriate. He's a light-skinned Black man, so
yeah, he is.
You know, their eyes might have deceived them. If he was Latinx, I didn't see any evidence of that. But he described himself as a biracial Cajun. His crimes, we'll get into that later. His crimes occurred in Arlington, Texas. His victims were Speak Their Names, Christine Vu, 26, rest in power, and 20-year-old Wendy Prescott, rest in power, Queens. Those were the murder victims. But he also had some rape victims in his wake. And the ones we know about are Chima Simone Benson, Jacqueline Howard, Adrian Fields, Keisha Ricks, and Cicely Stinson. His crimes were sexually motivated, and his MO was to sneak into women's homes, bind them with duct tape, beat them, and drown them in the bathtubs. His crimes occurred from September 1996 to October 1999, and a jury convicted Scheanette of the capital murder of Wendy Prescott in January 2003 and sentenced him to death. Scheanette was charged with Vu's murder but was not tried, and he died by lethal injection in Texas in February 2009. So now we're going to get into the setting. Take us there, Beth.
Well, we have two locations to talk about in this one.
Hmm.
The first is Monroe in Washita Parish, Louisiana, where Dale Scheanette grew up. Washita Parish was the home to many different indigenous groups in the thousands of years before Europeans began to settle there.
Surprise, surprise. Peoples of the Marksville culture, Troyville culture, Coles Creek culture, and Plaquemine culture built villages and earthwork mound sites throughout the area. There is a filial mound site, which is located on a natural levee on the Wachita River, and Watson Break, the oldest indigenous earthwork mound complex in North America. It is older than the Egyptian pyramids or Stonehenge. Now, come on, that is noteworthy.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't visit it because it's on private property. But
Oh, shoot.
yeah, but hopefully they're preserving it well.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Dale Scheanette described himself as biracial and Acadian, also known as Cajun. Acadians are the descendants of the French settlers and sometimes the indigenous peoples of parts of Acadia in the northeastern region of North America, comprising what is now the Canadian Maritime Provinces.
The history of the Acadians was significantly influenced by the 6 colonial wars that took place in Acadia during the 17th and 18th century, and some Acadians migrated to Louisiana where they became known as Cajuns, a version of the word Acadians or Acadians.
Fast forward to the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, as white people worked to reestablish dominance over the freedmen in Washita Parish. Elections were often won by intimidation and fraud as white people worked to establish white supremacy. And the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Ain't that a bitch? And lynchings, mostly of black men by white mobs in Washita, and across the South were a form of racial terrorism, by which the white people enforced their dominance. A 2015 study of lynchings found that from 1877 to 1950, a total of 38 people were lynched in Washita Parish.
This was the third highest total in the state and the fifth highest total of lynchings of any county in the South.
Oh.
Yeah. And among the victims was George Bolden, an illiterate black man accused of writing a lewd note to a white woman. He was illiterate.
Yeah. How do they figure?
Yeah. How do they figure he did that?
Mm-hmm.
Before he went to trial, he was lynched near Monroe on April 30th, 1999.
Before he went to trial. And by the way, that number 38, I guess the context makes it seem like it is, what was it, the fifth largest of any county in the South? But that's just what was reported.
What we know about.
What we know of. A lot of times these things didn't always happen in the public square for everybody to view. Sometimes they happened and were unreported. So, so Dale Scheanette grew up in Washita, but his crimes took place in and around Arlington, Texas, which is located between Fort Worth and Dallas, Texas. The Caddo people, the first known settlers in the region, were victims of westward expansion. Lo and behold, they were minding their own goddamn business in 1841 when American settlers and the indigenous peoples got in conflict over the land. During the conflict, more than 200 lodges belonging to the indigenous people were burned, and the Republic of Texas signed a peace treaty with 9 Indian tribes in 1843 at what is now Arlington.
The city was founded in 1876 along the Texas Pacific Railway. The city was named after General Robert E. Lee's Arlington House in Arlington, Virginia. Yay!
You're on your own on that one.
It was a sarcastic yay.
Oh, okay. Then I'm with you with the sarcasm. I was gonna say you can miss me with that celebration.
Yeah. You're like, you're no longer my favorite white lady.
Still are. I appreciate the sarcasm. Take out everything I said.
Okay. The 1940s brought World War II to the forefront of the USA, and many families around Texas moved to Arlington for work. The war kickstarted a manufacturing revolution in Texas, and Arlington was the biggest aerospace engineering hub in Texas at the time.
Automotive and aerospace development gave the city one of the nation's greatest population growth rates between 1950 and 1990. Arlington became a boom burb, what they called fast-growing suburbs of the World War II era, or post-World War II era. Yeah, I like that word.
Arlington in 1996 was a city of 300,000 and better known as part of the suburban sprawl between Fort Worth and Dallas. And mysterious unsolved homicides were not common. Wendy Prescott's murder was the 17th and last homicide of 1996.
Well, in 2000, 0.55% of the population was American Indian or Indigenous, 6% was Asian, almost 14% was Black or African American alone, almost 68% was white, and 18% of the population was Latinx.
January of 1996 was when the Amber Alert was created for Amber Hagerman, the little girl who was abducted in broad daylight, which also happened in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, so the 90s, I'm gathering, were a interesting time to be in Arlington. Now we're going to get into Scheanette's early life. As we mentioned, Dale Devon Scheanette was born in Monroe in Ouachita Parish, Louisiana, May 7th, 1973. As a child, he had a high squeaky voice that made him reluctant to read aloud in class, and he was known to be a shy and timid kid.
But by high school, he had grown out of it and was known as a typical guy who liked to crack jokes, and he was not a discipline problem. But according to school records, he rated poor on self-reliance, cooperation, and study habits.
At the time that he lived there, the population of Monroe, Louisiana was about 56,000. It was majority Black, about 60%, and Dale grew up in Tanglewood Heights, an area of Monroe that was plagued by crime and drugs. But Dale was never in trouble with the law, except for one traffic violation. He had a basically clean record.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Although he did attend high school, I'm not sure for how many years or if he actually graduated from high school or not. But later, Dale worked as a machine operator, a warehouseman, a forklift operator, and a laborer. He was also a bouncer at a nightclub in town. He described himself as a jack of all trades.
He had at least one brother, Timothy, who has also been in trouble with the law, having been convicted of battery and kidnapping in 2015 in a domestic violence case involving his live-in girlfriend. A sister named April has also been mentioned in some news articles.
We don't know a whole lot about his early life, but while he was on death row, he sought a pen pal and listed his likes and his interests. In those pen pal requests, he referenced wanting to get to know his sons. He said he would like to, quote, hug my kids, take my sons fishing. One article mentioned 2 sons and a daughter.
We do know that he got married, but we don't know when. In March of 1999, his wife, Dion Kennard, called police after Scheanette became violent when she told him she was leaving him. He slammed her head into a wall and dragged her around the house by her hair. He was issued a misdemeanor citation for simple assault.
He apparently boxed in his spare time, and in a March 3rd, 2000 Fort Worth Star-Telegram article, he was listed as a super heavyweight.
Wow, that's interesting.
So he was a big guy, I guess.
Yeah.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask second grade teacher Mr. Torres.
Put me and just one Clorox wipe on a team? We can take on crayon smudges, sticky fingerprints on every surface, sneezes on the door handle, juice box explosion by the sink, snack crumbs, and don't even get me started on the bathroom passes.
Clorox disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe.
Think about it. Bathroom passes.
Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Well, now we're going to get into the timeline. So in 1996, Christine Vu, 25 years old, was living in the Pear Tree Apartments in Arlington, Texas. The Pear Tree Apartments and a sister complex across the street, the Plum Tree Apartments, had about 600 residents, many of them young, just starting out their careers and attracted to average rent of $463 per month. 5 schools were within short walking distance, and the complex became a magnet for young female educators living alone.
And they looked pretty nice.
Yeah.
Christine was a third-grade teacher described as having a very positive personality. In September of 1996, Christine was sharing her apartment with her boyfriend, Tang Ku. On September 17th, Tang returned home to the apartment, but he found that the deadbolt was locked from the inside, essentially locking him out. And it was my impression that you would turn the lock on the inside and there was no key to unlock it from the outside.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So he knocked on the door, but nobody answered. Thinking perhaps Christine was in the bathroom, maybe taking a shower or something, he went back to his car to wait a little bit, smoking a cigarette before returning to the apartment.
But the door was still locked. So he went to the apartment complex gym to use the phone there to call Christine. It was 1996, so not a lot of people had cell phones. But she didn't answer, so he decided to try the door one more time. This time it was unlocked, so he went in.
Tang found Christine lying face down in a half-filled bathtub. She had been hog-tied with duct tape, and her hands, ankles, and neck were wrapped with the duct tape. Tang pulled his girlfriend out of the tub, then ran outside and began banging on neighbors' doors, asking them to call the police.
Detective Ed Featherston of the Arlington Police Department took the call. At the scene, Tang was inconsolable and screaming, saying that he wanted the police to find out who did this. Detective Featherstone spoke with Tang. He found Tang's story about coming back to the apartment 3 times before finding the door unlocked a little strange.
Okay. In the apartment, there were no signs of forced entry and no evidence of robbery. However, a single fingerprint was found on the deadbolt lock. Semen was also recovered from Christine's body during autopsy. The autopsy showed she had been raped, strangled, and drowned.
Christine's boyfriend immediately became a suspect, and as we mentioned, Detective Featherstone found his story hinky. But Tang denied involvement and willingly provided hair and saliva samples for DNA testing. The fingerprint that was found did not match Tang, and unfortunately, also did not lead to any other suspects.
3 months later, on December 24th, 1996, Wendy Prescott, a 22-year-old elementary school teacher's aide, was due to go shopping with her sister Skyla and share Christmas Eve dinner with her family at her grandmother's house.
In 1977, when Wendy was still a toddler, her mother had been beaten and strangled to death in a Fort Worth park, and her murder was never solved. So Wendy was raised by her grandmother and her Aunt Brenda. Wendy has been described as a very kind person who genuinely loved children. She was always smiling, and whenever the kids saw her, they gave her hugs.
Man, that sounds like
Sweet
she really
person.
A sweet person,
Yeah.
even though those beginnings were really tragic.
Yeah.
Wendy lived in the same Pear Tree apartment complex. Was it Peach Tree or Pear Tree?
Pear Tree.
Pear Tree. Okay, Pear Tree apartment complex where Christine Vu had been found murdered 3 months earlier. And Wendy had been disturbed by the murder in her apartment complex. But she reasoned that the chances of another homicide at the same complex were probably small.
That Christmas Eve, Wendy never showed up for the shopping trip with her sister Skyla, so Skyla called their grandmother's house to see if she was there. She was not. Norman and Brenda Norwood, Wendy's uncle and aunt, then became worried.
Around 11 p.m., after nobody had seen Wendy all evening, Norman went to her apartment to check on her. The family believed that she would never have missed the Christmas Eve celebration unless something was really wrong.
And Norman found Wendy dead in her apartment bathtub, partially submerged in the water in the same signature fashion as Christine Vu. She had also been hogtied with duct tape. An autopsy later showed that she had been sexually assaulted and bound in this fashion prior to her death. Her cause of death was determined to be manual strangulation, with the possibility that her immersion in the tub also played a role in her death.
Investigators were able to recover a high-quality fingerprint from a television stand in Wendy's apartment, and sperm samples were recovered during autopsy, but no matches were returned from law enforcement databases.
Wendy's apartment was 150 feet away from Christine's apartment and was actually the exact same model of apartment.
Wow.
When Detective Featherstone arrived on the scene, he described the feeling he had while looking at the crime scene as deja vu.
There were, again, no signs of forced entry and no evidence of robbery, although Christine and Wendy were both educators. They did not know each other. They did not have high-risk lifestyles. They were both women of color, and Christine was Asian, likely Vietnamese, and Wendy was Black. But police could not establish any links between the two women.
Investigators learned that Wendy had been stalked by a man for months and that she had filed a domestic assault report when he threatened her and hit her. He became a suspect, but it turned out his fingerprints did not match.
I do appreciate the police doing their work on this, though.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, the killings, which the media dubbed the work of the Bathtub Killer, terrorized the Dallas-Fort Worth area and went unsolved for more than 3 years. By the way, I read that after this happened to Wendy, single women in that complex were like, I'm breaking my lease. You could charge me. You could take me to court. I am out of here. And that is understandable.
Yes, very understandable.
The killings, which the media dubbed the work of the Bathtub Killer, terrorized the Dallas-Fort Worth area and went unsolved for more than 3 years. Needless to say, all the single women in the Peachtree apartment complex were
Pear Tree.
in the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartment, and a partridge in a pear tree apartment complex were petrified to sleep, take out their trash, or to go to the mailbox. Oh, I already said this. Residents began to move out en masse.
For several weeks after the second homicide, moving vans were seen frequently at the apartment complex as terrified residents moved out. Quote, I don't want to be victim number 3, said one resident who was also a teacher. He may be living in the next building for all I know, looking to see who he's going to get next. If he's targeting teachers, I'm out of here.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I'm outie.
I need to survive. And I don't think I can do that here.
I think I would have done the same thing.
Me
fuck
too.
That. I'm out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you love true crime and you don't want to die, move out of your apartment.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. So Thanku was no longer considered a suspect, and detectives spread out and began looking at every male associated with the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartment complex. An air conditioning repairman who was not at work either day that the women were murdered became a suspect. A man who changed the locks in the apartments became a suspect. A man who lived across the hall from Christine, who then moved to another apartment after the murder, which turned out to be across the hall from Wendy, became a suspect.
Man, I would hate to be that guy.
I know.
Like, fuck, again?
I'm just trying to, live and do my job. Oh, man. But again, it sounds like the police are really trying.
They were doing their jobs.
Pin it on somebody or get a false confession or any of that bullshit.
They were just investigating. So kudos to them.
Mm-hmm.
Investigators identified hundreds of residents, employees, and associates of the property and began the process of questioning and eliminating. Thousands of leads were followed up and hundreds of men were asked for blood samples to test for DNA. They were all cleared.
On September 21st, 1998, Jacqueline Howard was raped in her child's bedroom. Ooh, that took my breath away, by an intruder who threatened a shootout involving the children if she called the police before he got away.
On October 2nd, 1998, Keisha Ricks, a Dallas police officer, was raped in her apartment by an intruder who threatened to kill her and her parents if she called the police. To prove he knew where her parents lived, he correctly recited their address.
That it would have anybody terrified to the bone. That is, whew.
And that police officer lived yards away from Jacqueline Howard, who had been sexually assaulted the prior month.
Wow, how brazen do you have to be to go after a police officer?
Yeah. That's one that I'm like, he must have gotten some kind of thrill out of that.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going. On December 18th, 1998, Cecily Stinson was asleep with her 2-year-old son in her bed. She awoke to the sight of an intruder sitting on the edge of her bed with her son no longer in it. When she began screaming, the intruder told her he would hurt her and the little boy if she continued.
At one point during the sexual assault, Stinson hit the intruder and ran into the bedroom with her son, locked the door, and tried to call the police, but the phone was not working. The intruder then broke through the door and ordered her to put down her crying child. She convinced him to let her get her son some milk, at which time she ran towards the front door where they struggled.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I was just riveted by you talking. When Stinson's son started to hit the intruder on the leg, yelling, "Let my mom go," he loosened his grip around Stinson's neck, at which point she was able to get free, open the door, and scream. Her assailant then fled. It was later learned that Scheanette lived in the same apartment complex.
Yikes.
Oh my God, yes.
On February 23rd, 1999, 22-year-old Shima Simone Benson was asleep in her Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority house when she woke up to see a masked man in her bedroom. He had entered through her bedroom window and was wearing a stocking mask over his face, which would be terrifying.
Oh my God, yeah. The man told her, "Do what I say and I won't kill you." But when he demanded oral sex, she bit him hard on the penis. He then became enraged and beat her to the point of senselessness, then fled through the front door. After the attack, Chima ran to a neighbor's house because the phone line had been cut. And at the hospital, a rape kit was done and semen was collected. By the way, Alpha Kappa Alpha is a Black sorority.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, a sorority house, right? There's a lot of women living in it. And so it also seems like
pretty brazen.
Yeah, I feel like brazen is not a strong enough word to enter a home full of these women, because somebody would notice something. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree.
Very brazen. Very brazen.
He seemed to like to take risks.
Yeah, and he's ramping up. Like, he went from September, October, December, and he keeps going.
Benson suffered contusions and lacerations to her breasts, groin, and legs, as well as severe head and facial injuries for which she had to undergo 2 surgeries to prevent her left eye from sinking into her head.
Oh, my God. He really did a number on her after. Well, she did one on him too. In fact, she deserves some hip hop air horns. Now, after this attack, a woman called police and said her ex-boyfriend had been stalking her, and she thought that he might be the Bathtub Killer. She had been one of Wendy Prescott's best friends, and she had actually stayed in the same room as Chima in the sorority house at one point. She thought the man must have thought she was still staying there, and she told police, "It should have been me."
The sample taken from Shima was then compared to the DNA recovered from the 1996 murders at the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartment complex, and it was confirmed to be a match. But it did not match the ex-boyfriend of Wendy's friend.
Police are still doing their jobs, though.
Yeah.
Still working the case.
But what a coincidence.
Right? Love it. I love it when these kinds of things come together, right? However, not that people get hurt and die. That's not the part.
No.
However, detectives now had a lead in not only Chima's attack, but also the murders. They had a physical description from Chima. The suspect was a light-complected black male in his 20s. He also had an injury to his penis now. Police were not certain how badly Chima had injured him, but enough to leave evidence of it.
On March 7th, 1999, Dale Scheanette was arrested in DeSoto, Texas, in connection to a break-in of a car accessory store. As a result, his prints were taken and entered into a database. It was his first arrest and the first time his prints had been entered into a database.
Then, not long afterward, on March 31st, 1999, Scheanette's wife, Dion Kennard, called police after Scheanette became violent when she told him she was leaving him. As we related earlier, he had slammed her head in a wall and dragged her around the house by her hair, and he was issued a misdemeanor citation for simple assault.
On October 26, 1999, 25-year-old postal worker Adrian Fields awoke at 3 a.m. to see a man wearing a stocking over his head coming towards her. Again, terrifying.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He leapt onto the bed and put a gun to her back, threatening to hurt her if she did not be quiet.
We should rewind a bit. In 1996, Adrian was 22 years old when Vu and Prescott were murdered at the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartment complex. She was single and making good money working at the post office. She would work hard and play hard. And after work, she often went out to the club with her friends.
She lived about 10 minutes away from the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartments, and when the news broke about the Bathtub Killer, she became paranoid that she was going to be the killer's next victim. She changed her entire routine to throw off any potential stalker. Her friends thought she was crazy, but she could not stay in her apartment anymore and ended up moving to Grand Prairie, just east of Arlington.
The news of the Bathtub Killer died down, and after Adrian moved, she started feeling safe again. That is until around 1999, when she developed a sense that someone was following her. She told her friends and family about this feeling, and although they helped her, coming to stay with her when she needed, they again thought it was just all in her head.
One October night, she had finally had enough of being scared. She told her friends and family she did not want to be scared anymore. She did not need anyone to stay with her. She would not keep the lights and the TV on all night. She would turn off the lights and go to sleep and everything would be fine. And that was the night that she was attacked.
Oh my God.
I know.
Her attacker knew her name and he proceeded to rape her for 2 hours. When she asked him why he did this, he replied, "The devil keeps making me do it." When Adrian had been scared that the Bathtub Killer would get her, she had practiced in her mind what she would do if she were ever attacked. But she found that it wasn't the same when you're actually being attacked.
However, she had read that if you are attacked, you should try to get the attacker to humanize you, as it makes it harder for them to kill you. So she kept talking to him, telling him things about herself, asking things about him, trying to get him to see her as a human being. And it worked. He told her, "You're not like the others," and he did not attempt to kill her. He left after pushing her to the floor.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast, brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today, available now on all major podcast platforms.
They say to only bring what you can carry. So with the all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor, bring a lot. Like 3 dirt bikes, a few tents, an entire crew ready to make memories. A panoramic 24-inch display, and the confidence to push your limits. The all-new 2025 Ford Expedition Tremor.
Always consult the owner's manual before off-road driving. Know your terrain and trail difficulty and use appropriate safety gear. Max payload varies based on accessories and vehicle configuration. See label on door jamb for carrying capacity of a specific vehicle. Always properly secure cargo.
So now we're going to get into the investigation and the arrest. After Chima's assault at the University of Texas at Arlington, flyers were distributed which police described the attacker as a black man between 22 and 24 years old with a large build, about 5'8" to 5'10", wearing jeans, a denim jacket, and possibly a white t-shirt.
Police returned to their suspect list and were able to eliminate 2/3 of the remaining pool, focusing only on the black males. At the same time, detectives learned of a new fingerprinting system known as iAFIS. After 4 years with no hits in AFIS, in the summer of 2000, Arlington police resubmitted the fingerprint from the Prescott murder to the FBI computer system iAFIS.
An FBI analyst found a conclusive match with Scheanette's fingerprints, which entered the system in 1999. Police then learned that Scheanette had lived at the Pear Tree and Plum Tree apartments at the time of Vu's murder. but he had no criminal record, so they had no reason to suspect him in particular. They expected that a man who did this crime was, at the very least, an experienced criminal.
And in August of 2000, Scheanette was arrested and a saliva sample was taken from him via court order because he refused.
Okay.
The DNA from Scheanette's saliva was matched to the DNA recovered from Wendy Prescott's murder. Scheanette also had an injury to his penis.
All right. Shout out to DNA and good old-fashioned police work.
Yeah.
Scheanette's fingerprints and DNA evidence were also matched to the samples taken from Vu's murder and Adrian Fields' attack. DNA evidence linked Scheanette to a total of 5 rapes and 2 murders in the Dallas-Fort Worth area from September 1998 to October 1999.
Police believe that Scheanette stalked some of his victims after seeing them at a nightclub where he was the bouncer. Adrian Fields had gone to that nightclub, and it was presumed that as a bouncer, when checking women's identification, he would select his victims and memorize their names and addresses.
Which is so terrifying.
Gross. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I used to wish that I had a photographic memory, so I could just look at something. But can you imagine how dangerous that would be if somebody used it for nefarious purposes,
for bad things? Yeah,
like Mr. Scheanette. So now we're going to get into the trials. So Greg Miller, the Tarrant County District Attorney who prosecuted Scheanette in 2003, said, "He personifies evil. I've been doing this for 36 years. I've had others who have killed and done bad things, but he's at the top of the list." Mm-hmm.
Scheanette was tried only for the murder of Wendy Prescott. He was charged with Christine Vu's murder, but he was not tried. And in January of 2003, a jury convicted Scheanette of the capital murder of Wendy Prescott, and he was sentenced to death. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed the conviction and sentence in September 2004. All of his subsequent appeals in state and federal court were denied. And I'm not really sure why he was never tried for Christine's murder or the rapes. Maybe they figured it was a waste of time. I don't know. But
yeah,
that's what happened.
I don't know either. It would have been nice. But I think
maybe they had the best evidence on that one.
Yeah,
or maybe they were holding Christine's murder just in case he was not found guilty of Wendy's. I don't know.
See, what would we do without you? Chima Simone was instrumental in identifying him as the culprit, and she testified in the sentencing phase of Scheanette's trial. During the punishment phase, various family members and a chaplain testified on Scheanette's behalf.
His mother, Connie, pleaded for her son's life, saying that he loved his 2 sons and daughter. And his sister, April, added that a life sentence would be punishment enough. Scheanette declined to speak with reporters while on death row.
So now we're going to get into where are they now? Well, I'll tell you, he is DEAD dead. Scheanette's final meal before he was executed was 2 spicy fried leg quarters, French fries, and ketchup, and 2 spicy fried pork chops.
Mm-mm. That is a lot of spicy protein.
Yeah. And I was thinking about something because they don't give it to you right before they execute you, right?
Right.
They have to give wait a certain amount of time. But I was before doing all this was just thinking it's your last meal before they stick the needle or get you in the chair. But there's people watching these executions, and if you threw up a bunch of food. I don't know. I mean, the whole thing is
weird.
Weird anyway, but that's where my mind went. Anyways.
Yeah. I don't know if I could eat anything.
Oh, yeah. That would be hard.
Maybe they could give it to me the day beforehand. Hopefully, never be there. I'm not planning on doing anything that will put me on death row. So, but I have these nightmares.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I've always thought that was a really interesting part of the story, the last meal. But then you just wouldn't want it to come up when you were executed.
Yeah, when you were being executed. Yeah, how embarrassing.
Right? I'm here. I am dying, but then
dying and throwing up. Yeah,
I mean, I think the goal. I don't know if the goal is dignity, but I think some might. I think there's an argument to be made that the killing should be more humane than not.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Right.
I think having somebody, I don't know why I'm laughing. Throw up in the middle of it would be uncouth is the only word that comes to mind.
So when we were researching, I found a website and it's devoted to people's last meals on death row.
The whole website.
The whole website. Yeah.
Wow. Man, look at the internet is undefeated once again.
Whatever you want, it's there on the internet.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Sorry,
so
that was a long tangent. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was a tangent. So Scheanette acted as his own lawyer in later appeals, and his sister, acting on his behalf, filed a 3-page handwritten motion seeking a reprieve from the U.S. Supreme Court. It was turned down less than an hour before he was taken to the death chamber.
And on February 10th, 2009, he was executed by lethal injection in Texas. Asked if he had any final statement, Dale Devon Scheanette said, "My only statement is that no cases ever tried have been error-free. Those are my words. No cases are error-free," end quote.
6 relatives of the 2 murdered women watched the execution. He never looked at them. He was the 7th condemned inmate to be executed in Texas that year, and the first of 2 to die that week.
Wow. They're busy over there.
Yeah, don't mess with Texas.
Don't mess with Texas. Due to her injuries suffered during the attack, Chima Simone had to undergo 2 reconstructive surgeries. She is now a journalist and is also known as a former contestant on Big Brother. She discussed the attack during her appearance on Big Brother season 11. Her story was also profiled on an episode of Cold Case Files, and she's currently a TV personality and freelance journalist.
Adrienne Fields didn't have any peace until police called her in September of 2000 to say they'd caught Scheanette. Quote, "I remember thinking I can finally sleep now," she said. Scheanette was actually executed on her birthday, and she said...
That's super poetic.
Yeah. She said, quote, "The day of my birth, he lost his life. So it's time for you to live again."
But she also suffered from survivor's guilt, depression, and self-doubt for decades. But in 2015, she started ministering and telling her story. She also launched a website to empower women. Her message to other women was, you don't have to feel like you are alone, and you don't have to feel like life is over because things happen to you. She hopes her story will help others overcome their fears and find peace in surviving their pain. So now we're going to get into our takeaways. We don't know enough about his childhood to be able to really identify if there is an excuse there or some kind of explanation. Rape is a crime of power. It's not about sex. So at some point in his life, maybe he was a victim of sexual abuse or physical abuse where he felt powerless, and that sort of never like that feeling was just imprinted on his mind and psyche. I read some of his death row pen pal letters, and I thought it was telling when he described how he liked to pick out his girlfriend's clothes, shoes, and nail color. Control much. He also had a history of domestic violence in his marriage. It's also unusual that he went from rape and murder and then downgraded, de-escalated to eliminate that element of murder from his crimes. Scheanette was terrifying. He was unassuming, I think some would say, from looking at his photo, not really worthy of suspicion. But the fact that he entered Vu's apartment and likely killed her while her fiance was outside smoking a cigarette is terrifying. And if it's true that he memorized people's names and addresses just from checking their IDs, then that is also terrifying because that means none of us are safe. Hey, Wendy, can you please verify your address to pay back your gazillions of dollars worth of student loans? Oh, sure. My address is... wait a minute, what if you're, or
checking your ID when you're buying alcohol or something like that. Yeah.
So shout out to the women who survived his attacks by biting his penis and then talking him down to, essentially, she humanized herself. The reality is he left the families of Vu and Prescott in his wake, and who knows what could have become of those women's lives and legacies. An entire community was terrified for his horrific crimes, not to mention the impact that rape can have on the mental and physical health of those who survive it. So
yeah,
those are my takeaways. What do you think, Beth?
So it's weird because I had the exact same thought when I read that sentence about how he liked to pick out his girlfriend's wardrobe all the way down to what color nail polish she wears. Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a super controller. And we talked about how brazen he got with some of those crimes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that he got off on because he liked the control. Maybe. I don't know. And also it was weird how he went from rape and murder to just rape without murdering.
Yeah.
Usually killers escalate, not de-escalate.
Right.
And I don't know why he did that. Maybe he didn't get what he wanted from the murders, which were pretty horrific.
Yeah.
If you think about how they were killed, being hogtied and strangled and drowned. It's horrific.
Right.
Yeah. But maybe he didn't get what he wanted out of those. They were dead, and then it was over. Maybe he liked it better when he knew the victims were still walking around and he could still see them, knowing what he'd done to them.
Right.
And Adrienne Fields described how after her attack, when her friends were trying to get her to go out again, and they took her to the club where Scheanette worked, and she got freaked out because she felt like he was there watching her, even though she didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And he was actually there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And maybe he liked that.
Maybe.
That kind of
it's part of the control.
Yeah, control he had over women. In any case, I'd have no idea what made him that way because we don't know enough about his childhood. And as far as we know, he had an uneventful childhood, but we have no idea.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say there was a lot of weird coincidences in this story, which made it kind of interesting.
Yeah, I like this one. Hadn't heard of
me
him
too.
before, and I can't remember who suggested it, but we had a good time on this one.
Yeah,
so,
we liked researching. That was a lot better than the Atlanta child murders.
Wow.
I
yeah.
never want to.
I have extra gray hairs. You know, somebody sent us a message and was like, you guys really should do Sam Little. And I'm like,
oh my God.
I want to.
We wanted to jump off of a cliff when we were
after that Atlanta child murders one, I just
yeah, it was
we
rough.
bit off more than we could chew, and I don't want to do that to y'all again.
Yeah, not give us about a year. I think.
Yeah, there you go. We'll take another stab at the Big Kahuna. Maybe not so early, coming back from a break.
Yeah.
All right, Beth, where can the people find us?
Our website is fruitloopspod.com, and we use Fruit Loops Pod for all of our social media. The footnotes for each episode can be found on our website. Plus, check it out for the different ways that you can support the show. You can also join us on Patreon, where we have hundreds of hours of bonus content. You can also support us by supporting our sponsors, or by giving us a 5-star review.
5 stars only, please.
Also, don't forget to subscribe.
That's right. Now, this is a weekly podcast, and episodes drop on Thursdays. So until next time, look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there.